Here with more. Making Money host Charles Payne, along with the founder of the Committee to Unleash Prosperity, Stephen Moore. I guess, Charles, let me start with you tonight. Do you agree with Larry's analysis of this? And isn't this a billionaire bailout at the end of the day?
Well, I'm going to be less diplomatic than Larry. Okay. Yeah, the answer is obviously, ultimately, when banks have higher fees, they pass them on to their customers. So we know that. That's what businesses do. Yeah, this is a bailout. This is a bailout of really Silicon Valley itself. Over the weekend, Silicon Valley went on the attack. They stoked fear, particularly on social media, that this was going to be a chain of events and that people would be lined up across the country at regional banks to take their money out. I went to 3 banks on Saturday. There wasn't a line anywhere. Nobody was panicking. So here's the thing. They were calling it an extinction event for Silicon Valley. How do we get here? For 20 years, Silicon Valley has been able to take these companies public that were exorbitantly overvalued. They made billions and billions and billions of dollars. They bought the world's biggest yachts. They built the biggest homes in the world. And from the moment of COVID, when all that extra money came out from the Federal Reserve and then the federal government, Silicon Valley Bank, their deposits went up 300%, almost to $200 billion. The average bank in America, their deposits went up 30%. It was the good times. So they had all of this cash. What did they do with it? They didn't lend it out. And they certainly never lent it out to regular folks. No regular folks got this money. None. Okay, so they decided to invest it. And they wanted to get yield. Everyone's looking for yield these days. And so here's the thing, and everyone's got to listen to this. When President Biden comes out today and he starts to say, well, I'm going to, demonize the banks. I'm going to make sure that these banks don't do anything reckless. Well, they bought bonds with it, U.S. bonds with it. There's no other investment in the world. They call it risk-free. The problem, though, of course, is because the Federal Reserve has had to come in and aggressively attack inflation, which, by the way, went over the top with that Biden $2 trillion. Jay Powell's hands have been tied to a degree, and they've tried to battle inflation. And consequently, last year, bonds had their worst year ever. The last 14 months for bonds have been the worst 14 months in anyone's lifetime.
It's amazing, Steve Moore, how J.P. Morgan, Peter Thiel, other smart people. J.P. Morgan was writing about this in November, for crying out loud. But explain how it's Biden's economic policies, his energy policies that caused record high inflation resulting in this bank investing a ton of money in treasuries, et cetera. Then all of a sudden people need their money and they've got to cash it out at a massive loss. Isn't that a big contributing factor here? And how many other banks around the country might be doing this?
Yeah, it's a complicated story, but in a lot of ways it's not so complicated, Sean. You kind of did a pretty good job of explaining and connecting these dots. First, it starts with trillions and trillions of dollars of out-of-control spending. Then the government has to borrow that money to finance all these $6 trillion of additional spending Biden enacted. Then the next step is all this money is flowing into the economy, and as you just correctly said, that additional money caused interest rates to rise and inflation to rise. And so now the Fed has to act, and it has to raise these interest rates to bring inflation down. And you've seen a big increase in these interest rates over the last 3 years. And this has caused big problems for banks. I do think there may be other banks. Like, I don't think we're going to see a major bank run or something like that. I think people should feel fairly secure. But there are probably other banks, as you mentioned, that are in this situation. But one other point that I feel strongly about, Sean, all I've heard from Biden over the last several weeks since his budget came out, we're going to make the rich pay their fair share. We're going after these rich people that are making too much money, et cetera. And who do you think is going to benefit from, and look, I will call it a bailout because I think it is, people with deposits of less than $250,000, that's the middle class, right, Sean? They are protected under current FDIC rules. What this is going to do is provide a bailout for the people with, millions and millions of dollars of these in accounts. And, gee, I thought he was going to sock it to the rich, and now he's giving them a big bailout.
Yeah, unbelievable. All right, Steve Moore, thank you. And Charles Payne, thank you.